After Antony Martial officially bade farewell to Old Trafford, we are here now to talk about who will come in and replace him. I told you I've been making my research about this striker talk, and I know we've been linked to so many strikers, but two are trending right now. One is now linked to Arsenal, the other was still linked to Arsenal, but people don't even want to think that Ollie Watkins can join Manchester United. My name is Webb. Welcome to the United Road Sport. Like, share, and let's talk about this whole Manchester United striker situation. Now, I certainly know that it's probably difficult to zero down on one striker that really Inios should be serious about in terms of bringing in. But we do know for a fact that it's now inevitable that Man United has got to bring in someone to replace Antony Martial because Martial is gone, and we're never going to have a team playing with only one striker in Rasmus Højlund. We've seen it before. When he's injured, we struggle. And never mind us being able to win a game when he came off the bench against Newcastle United. We cannot play with Scott McTominay as the false nine. It can't happen. Manchester United is not built like that. We've got to have able strikers. In fact, before under Sir Alex Ferguson, we would have more than two strikers, about four top strikers who can come in and bang in goals all the time. So it's definitely going to be important for Ineos to look for that striker they feel can come and either work with Rasmus Højlund or push him. But who will it be? Now, the two names that are trending now, and of course, these are guys just speculations, and none of them, like I've said in my in my opener, none of them is has been finalized. None of them is concrete because Ineos are still playing their cards close to their chest because they don't want to go deep into the transfer talk, sign players before getting a manager, before getting Dan Ashworth, the director of football, to give proper direction to where the football is supposed to head. So why bring in players when you don't know where you want to go? Then how are you going to profile these players? So, but what we know for a fact, at least according to Eric Ten Hag, who most likely, at least to many, is going to be staying and trusted for a bit longer, his plan has always been, and he has said it, to bring in a young striker who is Rasmus Højlund, already brought in for £72 million. He has shown his potential and what he can do, but also bring in an older striker for him to learn from. Now, if you base on that, I think it makes it obvious who of these two is going to be, if at least one of these two has got a chance to join Manchester United, it makes it obvious that probably there's not a high chance for the 20-year-old Benjamin Sesko who plays for RB Leipzig. But let's talk about him because, again, like I said, all these things can change. That was the plan before with Eric Ten Hag. But with Ineos coming in, with Dan Ashworth coming in, things might change. And they might say, let's have two young strikers and they push each other. So let's talk about them. So Benjamin Sesko is a 20-year-old Slovenian international who plays for RB Leipzig, and he has been his debut season at RB Leipzig, but he has scored about 15 goals in all competitions, and he has scored in the last four consecutive games. A very important player for RB. I think he has proved himself and how good he can be because he's really has got a good eye for the goal. If you ask about his price, he's priced at about 43 million pounds, at least in terms of the valuation from what I try to gather around him, that he's valued at about 43 million pounds, and he has been linked to Manchester United. But as we speak now, Arsenal seem to be now taking the lead in terms of strike of trying to get it to get him because Arsenal, we know, will certainly be the first club probably to bring in a striker in the summers and in the summer transfer window because that's probably the only position you clearly see Mikel Arteta needs to improve on if Arsenal are going to break onto the other side to get to the level of Man City perhaps and compete with them even more in the next season. So they certainly need a striker, and for someone priced at about 43 million pounds, really that's a typical Arsenal striker. Arsenal, and never mind them having spent more than 100 million on a midfielder in Declan Rice, who was probably one of the best signings of the season. He has worked for him. You don't think they're still going to spend 100 million? They're not 80 million on another player anytime soon. I think they're not generous like that with their money. So I think 43 million pounds for a 20-year-old, that's the kind of money Mikel Arteta would be given to sign a striker. So it's serious now because even his agent, Benjamin Sesko's agent that is, was seen at the Emirates Stadium watching an Arsenal game to again spark more talk that Arsenal are in the lead in terms of chasing for his signature ahead of any other club, including Chelsea, who have reportedly been as well interested in monitoring him. So is Man United. I've told you here before that these clubs always look at the same players because I mean the same world class players. They always look out for the best players in the Premier League, and in the same positions, always the best players are going to be the same. the best striker in the eyes of Arsenal will most likely be the best striker in the eyes of Real Madrid, in the eyes of Manchester United and Chelsea. So you've got to be able, if you identify a player and you seriously need them, you've got to be in position to go for them. And that's why I said the lack of clarity in my previous video, the lack of clarity in this whole manager situation is going to drag Manchester United a little behind when it comes to going for players that they are interested in. And other clubs will go and take the first priority of players we wanted, and will come then later on when we sort our house, to then now start wobbling around to look for the other remaining, what we call the residues. And that's exactly what Eric Ten Hag has been struggling with in his own admission. Now, so Sesko, good striker without a shadow of a doubt. He has scored over 15 goals, assisted twice. He's not so good with assisting, but he does bang in the goals. And I think that's what we're looking for. The goals, really, not more of the assists. But Ollie Watkins is the other guy. And there are people who have been laughing off talk linking Manchester United to Ollie Watkins, saying, how on earth does Ollie Watkins join Man United? If you follow Ollie Watkins, I mean, he has been progressing since he joined Aston Villa in 2020. He has been scoring more and more goals. He scored the first season, I think, 11 goals, then 16, then 15. Right now, he has scored 19 goals so far and assisted. Let me just be sure. He has scored 19 goals and assisted 13 times for Aston Villa this season. Now, that alone shows you that he's a player who is beyond just the goals, which I think is good for a modern player, for a modern striker. You've got to be able to assist and play along, because goals cannot come from you alone. You've got to be able to create as well. And if you're going to play in a team like Man United, you need to be able to create. So people feel like Ollie Watkins to United is far fetched and it can't happen because, one, they don't think United has the money. I don't think so, because I think if they are one of the two most important positions clearly that United has got to solve is, of course, the holding midfielder, central defense, and the striker is so important. So they've got to get the right striker, and they know that the right striker cannot come for free or cannot come cheap. In the other positions, you can get cheap players. You can get a fairly cheap centre back. There is Tosin, who is even free. He will be a free agent, and he's a beautiful footballer for Fulham. So in other positions, you can perhaps get a cheap player. But in a striking position in this day and age, they are expensive. So Inios will know that if they're going to get a striker worthy of Man United, worthy to come and push Rasmus Højlund, they have got to spend some bit of money. So the Ollie Watkins link for me would make sense. This is why I think Ollie Watkins would be a better option of the two. One, he's more proven in the English Premier League. He has been a big striker there, consistently improving season after season, 11, 15 to 19 goals. That's improvement for a player. His native English, that's one. He's already now knocking on the door of the Euros. To be the backup for Harry Kane. Of course, there's competition between him and Ivan Toney, but most people would feel that perhaps he deserves the chance more than Ivan Toney, because, I mean, he has been playing across the season for longer. And now, that's two. The third thing, and for me, this is why I think what I think is the most important, is his age. He's 28, and meaning that's experience more so in the Premier League. So if Rasmus Højlund, if ever the intention for Man United or Inios was to get Rasmus Højlund a player to learn from, you cannot tell me it's Sesko. Probably Højlund is better than Sesko. He has already scored 15 goals himself in this first season at United, yet United is a struggling team. Hargreaves was saying, and I agree, I've said it here before, that Højlund is a player who can give you 25 to 30 goals in a good team. Even more than that, if you ask me. So if Haaland can score 40, Højlund can score 45 in a good team, in as good a team, put them in the same team, I'll say it without fear, that Højlund can score more than Haaland in a good team. So I think he's not the player you bring Sesko to push him, because Sesko has got nothing to teach Højlund. But Ollie Watkins is a high-profile striker. He's a proper, complete footballer. So I think for me, he would be a good signing for Manchester United. Now, people will tell you, how on earth would he join Manchester United? It's even, insane to think about. I don't think so, because I think Aston Villa brought Ollie Watkins for about £28 million when they signed him from Brentford in 2020. His contract, signed a long contract and even renewed it recently. But of course, in total, they could get about 33 million, of course, with add-ons and stuff. I think Aston Villa could sell Ollie Watkins at about between 45 and 50 million pounds. And people are saying he's a 100 million pounds player and what? I don't think so. I personally think for 50, 55 million, 45 to 55 million pounds, I think they can let go of him. Now, isn't that money you think Man United can raise if they're serious in the transfer window? For an important player like Watkins, for a striker like that, a big striker, to come and give a good 3 years to their future boy in Hoyland, because Hoyland is 21 now. Bring Ollie Watkins, who is 28. In 3 years, Watkins will be 31. Now, 31 is the evening of the career of any striker. Watkins certainly will be phasing out, and in 3 years, Hoyland will be 24. That's close to the prime of a striker. He will have learnt a lot for him to come and take the mantle himself, and then we look for a younger one then to come and back up Hoyland. So I think in terms of continuity, Ollie Watkins gives us better continuity. But in those 3 years, you can know that there is a lot that Hoyland can learn from Watkins because of the Premier League and how it works. So for me, I look at it that when I'm thinking, if you think about it critically, Watkins makes a lot of sense. And I've said here before that for me the best option would be uh, Saul Girassi, that is the Stuttgart striker. But of course, that was before Ollie Watkins came into the picture. But of course, again, that was again looking at the money we have, the available resources we have, because Sahu Girassi is he's older than Hoyland. He's 27, but Girassi certainly cannot be better than Ollie Watkins because Girassi is not proven in a big league like the Premier League. So for me, I think Watkins can actually join Man United. It's possible. And someone can say, why would he leave a team in the Champions League and go to Man United? I think the fact that Aston Villa is in the Champions League does not make Man United a poor team or a smaller team than Aston Villa. I think that's raw. It's a shallow way to think about it. I think for a player who is 28, he will be. It's a dream come true for Ollie Watkins to play for a team like Manchester United. He's English. He knows certainly that Manchester United will give him a chance to be a big striker. He knows that there's a good chance for him to go and be the main guy because if Watkins came, he would not want certainly to sit on the bench because there is a young Hoyland. He will certainly play his best to be the starting striker, and that alone would push Hoyland to play his best. So that competition will make him even more lethal than he is now. That is one. So for him, it's a good thing. But also, he has got a good chance to be positioning himself as the lead striker for England because we know that Harry Kane will be perhaps leaving England in a few years. Maybe these Euros could be his perhaps you never last major tournament because he's aging. Watkins should be the next in line. So if he's playing for a big club like Manchester United, that's a big opportunity for him, especially now that the team is being rebuilt, and chances are there could be success. So for him, it's a big time opportunity for him looking at the future, to be the star man, to be the center of attention. United games are the most watched games, I think, in the Premier League in the world. So certainly for me, I feel like for a player like Watkins, in English, it's a big time opportunity for him to leave Aston Villa and play for Manchester United now because of the promise that Inios brings, of course, to a player like him. So he can even put in the transfer request himself, request Aston Villa to listen to Manchester United. So there's lots of ways that Inios can have an advantage in signing such a hot player, even if it looks like it's terrible for Manchester United. So for me, of the two, who makes sense? I'll go with Ollie Watkins, and if he comes in, he would certainly be the best to help us see the best of Rasmus Højlund because he's older, more experienced, has been more consistent, more mature, and he has got more understanding of the English Premier League. My name is Webb. This is the United Hotspot. That's my striker talk. Subscribe, follow, share, like, and I'll catch you later.